All right, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this MRI reporting webinar on how spreadsheet servers help WS development, how they've used it to streamline their reporting and how you can too. My name is Glennon Andrews. I'm an Excel automation advisor for Global Software. I'm on the sales side of the house, so I'm going to do a brief introduction to Global Software today, and then I'm going to hand it over to the co-presenters that I have on the call. Also joining me, I have Kevin Gibson, who's on our Solutions Enablement team, and he'll actually walk through a demonstration of Spreadsheet Server. But before we get to that point, we're really excited to have Heather Levesque with WS Development on the call. She is the accounting manager for WS Development. She oversees the accounting and reporting for major redevelopment projects in Boston, roughly 3.2 million square feet of mixed-use commercial and residential space. She's been with WS Development for just over 3 years, but she has a combined real estate experience and background of over 6 years in both public and private accounting. And she's been using Spreadsheet Server for close to a year, so we're really excited to have her expertise on the call today to talk about some specific examples of how WS Development is using the tool. So I guess before I hand it over to Heather, I did want to start just a little bit of background on Global Software to make you familiar. Global was founded in 1973, and we're headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, outside the Research Triangle. We also have sales and support offices outside of New York and Seattle, as well as international offices in the UK and also Perth, Australia. We are the #1 provider of Microsoft Excel-based automation solutions for the worldwide MRI marketplace. We're a Microsoft Gold partner, and we have over 5,000 customers in over 120 countries. So we're most excited, though, to have WS Management on the line with us today. So what we're going to see today is we're actually going to take a look at our tool Spreadsheet Server. It's an Excel add-in. There's no hardware associated with the tool, but once it is installed into Excel, you're going to be able to use real-time reporting. So no more copying and pasting or data dumps, no more VLOOKUPs or pivot tables. You're not going to have to do a lot of that stuff. You can still, but what it will do is it'll actually give you that real-time data. You'll get refreshable reports and drill downs from within Excel. So it's great for, you know, month-end close, for any kind of, if you're doing some real estate reports, rent rolls, you'll be able to actually refresh those reports and keep them in a nice format for executives and even dashboarding and ad hoc reporting. And we can do both GL and financial data, but also any data within MRI we can reach as well. And Kevin will probably show examples of how to use it, and Heather may speak to it as well, but we have a component of Spreadsheet Server called Distribution Manager that automates the updating, scheduling, and distribution of reports from within Excel. So you build a distribution list and you can send those out quickly. So that's what we're going to see from our side today. I just wanted to show a couple of examples of how some of our customers are using it and some of the time savings that they've experienced. So United Distributors, for instance, has saved up between 200 and 300 hours in 1 year using Spreadsheet Server, and Echo Real Estate Services have saved over 50 hours in a single year using Spreadsheet Server. So we're going to show you some ways to do it today. Before I do hand it over to Heather, I just wanted to mention a couple of housekeeping items. If you have questions throughout the presentation, in the top right corner of the WebEx screen, you should see a Q&A. Feel free to submit any questions to us, and we'll stop periodically throughout the webinar to answer those. But other than that, I will at this time hand it over to Heather, and we'll begin the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Glennon. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm pretty excited to be able to talk about Spreadsheet Server. We have just incorporated it in our company for about a year now, and it has saved a lot of time for us in accounting, but also some people in other departments, even though we haven't pushed it out 100% yet. But I just want to start giving you a brief background as to why we determined that we needed Spreadsheet Server and where we started to go from there. So initially, WS Development historically has been a company developing and managing commercial real estate, what we call lifestyle centers across New England, but we are just starting to get into larger projects and more complex projects. So right now we're delving into a development of just about 18 blocks of high-rise buildings in downtown Boston. And with this came a lot of legal complexities, organizational structure complexities, and reporting complexities that we hadn't seen before. So we determined at that time that the amount of work that we're putting into this project, we really need to start trying to find ways that we can become more efficient and more effective with our reporting. So we decided that Spreadsheet Server was the right choice for us, and it's been great so far. So I'd like to start with just showing you an example of how complex our current structure is and the need for Spreadsheet Server. So if we could move to the next slide, please. This is just an example of the organizational structure of this one project that we're doing, and this was from early on, so it's become a little bit more complex and more involved and with additional entities since I printed this chart. But all in all, we have individual block consolidations as well as two larger consolidations and combinations for the financial statements. And in total right now, I believe we have about 54 entities, and we were able to create consolidations for the financial statements with MRI to a certain point, but with this structure, we needed something that was a little bit that could mold to function the way that we needed it to. So what makes this structure a little bit more complex for us, and why we found that MRI could not produce the schedules and reports to the extent that we needed, at the title holder level, we have different components for each block, and we needed to be able to split these entities based on their components, and we could not find a way for MRI to be able to split it the way that we needed to. So with this, we felt that Spreadsheet Server, we would be able to build out the reports that we needed and more efficiently use our time to create the consolidations, to do checks of our balances, GAAP to tax variance analysis, budget analysis, all of that. So looking at this high level, this is the organizational structure and why we decided we needed to start moving in a different direction, and that it would be best served for us to use Spreadsheet Server among other competitive products. So basically, we've been able to use this so far in the accounting department to beef up some of our work papers, do variance analysis, financial statements and such, and not only have we gained time efficiencies, but we've been able to save money in different areas as well. And then we're starting to see that other departments within our company want to start incorporating this the best that they can as well. So I have provided a couple examples of the work papers that we've put together that we'll go through now, just to show you how we've incorporated Spreadsheet Server into some of the reporting that we do and how it could potentially help you. So like I had mentioned, the consolidation piece of this was really, really difficult for us. We were basically exporting our trial balances for each of the 52 individual entities into Excel and splitting the title holders that way in order to be able to perform the consolidations that were necessary. So the first thing that I did once we got Spreadsheet Server was I built out a report so that we could create the consolidations the way that we needed to. And it saved so much time on the front end of setup that we would have had to do an MRI just to test out if MRI could do it. We also have saved time on a weekly basis running these consolidations for any updates that were made to the GL. You could run them for any period, any time, a budget module, your actual GL module, tax versus GAAP basis. So what you're seeing now on the screen, and especially this snapshot that's been blown up, is this is what I built as just the data input for the user. So the user just needs to change these red fields, the date, the period, the tax basis, GAAP basis, type of the basis of the books that you want to see. And with just pressing generate reports, I've been able, we can create these consolidations, and they've been working really efficiently for us. So it's been really nice and really helpful for all of the accounting department, and specifically my team on this redevelopment project that we're going down on. So if you could go to the next slide, please. This is just the output that we'd get from the consolidation that I would run. So it shows the consolidation of the multiple entities. In this case, there's 4 different entities in this consolidation, which doesn't seem like it would be a very difficult thing to do. But like I had mentioned before, because of the title holder split, we have components that we need to basically create sub-GLs and sub-trial balances from the title holder trial balances that we have. So this is a result of running a consolidation report, and then I've also built in some checks and balances to make sure that the structure flows for the consolidation. Our investment and our capital tie out, the income and loss has been rolling up to the correct level. And like I said, you can just run this report with just hitting a button for any period, any basis, anytime. So it really has saved a lot of time for us, and this is probably the way that we get the most use out of Spreadsheet Server right now in my department. When we get to the financial reporting side of things, it's where we're saving a lot on time and money, but this is where I think the most use has come in for us so far. And we can go to the next slide. So this is also an input tab where we've been able to build out a schedule to do budget to actual projections and analysis, so basically a cash flow projection for the rest of the year. And so the user of these reports, all they have to go in and do is to select the entity, the period, the date, and then it would build out the rest of the report for us. So it would pull from our budget information that's in MRI, as well as the actual information, and just create the projection for us. So for the rest of the users of Spreadsheet Server within the accounting department, they'll go in and just update one thing, and we get the reports to produce everything that they'll need. So the build out of the reports takes a little bit of time, but it's really nothing major. But getting the results on a consistent basis and in real time from MRI it's so substantially better than what we've done in the past. So if we go to the next slide, this is just an example of what our budget to actual and projection produces after putting in all the inputs. So if you can see, I know it's a little tiny, but from January to June, above the monthly title, we have actuals. So, and then from July through December, we have the word budgeted up there. It's showing what the actuals are for our financial statements for those periods are to what the budgeted amounts are. And then at the bottom, we do a cash flow, it's a cash on hand, and projection through the rest of the year. So this has proven very helpful instead of taking the information, updating on a monthly basis. We can basically do projections at any point for any changes that were made to the period at hand. you know, as soon as adjustments are made in the GL, you can rerun this and just see how you're doing for the rest of the year. So this has become very helpful for us as well. The next slide, please. We've also used it for variance analysis, just simple budget to actual. You can do month to month, you can do period to period, you could do current period to prior period, current period to last year's period, you know, any sort of analysis that you want to do and set thresholds for, you can throw together. So this is just an example of all of our grouped income statement accounts, and we're just doing a comparison here of June's actual to the budget actual for if we're over, under, and then off to the side, we then use this report to put together our explanations. Whereas in MRI, we would get them in our financial statement report, but this is something, like I said, that can be run on real time for any period once you build out the report. It's just a lot simpler to use and easier to customize. So in the next slide. What we've also been able to use is the drill down feature for our general ledgers. So our general ledger work papers, we determined we were spending a lot of time just basically data dumping information into our work papers just to keep record, even though the information is right in MRI. But a great feature for those accounts that you may not need to have too much additional information in there, but you just kind of want a record of, you can just double click on the balance of that account and then export the activity that is directly in MRI and how it shows in MRI directly into Excel, and just use that as your general work paper. And so for smaller entities where we have certain thresholds and we don't want to be tracking certain types of expenses in as much detail as we are on some of our larger properties and our larger accounts, we just will simply take those accounts that fall below a threshold, put them in Excel, drill down, and you get the data into Excel directly like you're seeing in this example here. So it's just another way that we've been able to use Spreadsheet Server to kind of help out with the monthly close process and monitoring accounts instead of printing a report from MRI every single time you want to look at an account. And the next slide, this shows basically just a trial balance comparison, which is very similar to building out a report for your variance analysis. We do a lot of comparing our GAAP to tax trial balances for, year-end tax returns, any partner information that they may want to see or know about. So we keep tally on a month-to-month basis of our GAAP tax differences because we do keep GAAP and tax books. So we've found this helpful as a history of month-to-month and just kind of doing comparisons, and have been able to just build out this report and have our work papers drive off this comparison. So it's been very helpful in that way as well. I did not provide any financial statement examples, unfortunately, but we've been able to use Excel to build financial statements in the same format that MRI would produce financial statements for us. And we've been able to do this very consistently for the past 2 or 3 quarters, I would say, and I'm starting to build it out for some of our other entities that we're going to start putting online after they get out of development and we need individual reporting for. So what's great about this is you can just run it for different bases once you build out the report, but we are also about a year ago, we were contracting this work with our professional audit and tax group the audit tax professionals that we use for consulting, and we were having them run both the consolidations on a block-by-block basis for us, as well as building out these financial statements for us. And we found that we were spending on average about $2,000 per block. So we've been able to save about $9,000 for the financial statements that we've been having to produce on a quarterly basis. So $9,000 quarterly for the financials that we have been doing. But then when you start seeing other blocks come offline and the being able to use this for other entities that we haven't had that need for in the past, we're going to be saving more and more and more, and our need for our audit and tax consultants to be able to prep some of this work for us is going to be very minimal in the future. So it's been great in that respect. But I've also heard from other departments within the company, not just accounting, but our partners personally and upstairs and the finance department as well have reviewed the financial health of our portfolios with their own spreadsheets that they built out. So they've been able to jump on this, build out spreadsheets to review certain portfolios and the financial health the way that they need to see this information, and have put restrictions on it so that the information that they don't want the rest of the department to see hasn't seen it. But we've also incorporated some spreadsheet servers mining abilities from MRI with some of our projection models that we export into Excel, such as Argus. So we've been able to sort of use both, export information that we've projected through Argus models and such into Excel, and then couple that with some of our spreadsheet server reports. And I've also been approached by other departments, such as lease compliance, who is looking not necessarily for the numbers side of things, but how we can use Spreadsheet Server to develop queries in order to pull lease information and create reports where they can, just change a couple different inputs in order to get the information that they're looking for instead of searching through MRI, because those reports aren't as nicely presented and printed as we can produce with Spreadsheet Server. So overall, it's been great. I rave about this, and there's so many different aspects of Spreadsheet Server that I see we can work into our day-to-day activities or other departments. So it's been great this far, and we don't regret anything about going down this path. So I wish I had even more examples to show you, because on a day-to-day basis, even if I'm just comparing a couple balances or a couple trial balances to each other, or just, want to put together a quick analysis of something, it's a lot easier for me in Excel to just go in, build that formula, that report, and be able to produce what I want to see for the time being. So it's been great so far, but yeah, any questions at the end of this, I'd be very happy to answer, but I think that's where it wraps it up for me right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Heather. That was such a great presentation, great examples, and we always love to hear, time-saving examples, and even especially monetarily when there's money saved like that, and we hear about the tool paying for itself. That's terrific. So. And I was also about to mention, just outside of finance, using it for, we have a lot of asset and lease and property managers using it as well, just to look at tools, or look at their buildings and costs, expenses and things on a daily basis, so using it for that, so that's terrific. So thank you again for that. And I did just want to remind everybody, feel free throughout to use the Q&A box, and we'll stop periodically to answer those. And we can also do a little Q&A session at the end if that helps. So at this time, I am going to hand it over to Kevin Gibson, and he'll walk through just kind of a general presentation of Spreadsheet Server.
All right. Well, thank you, Glenn, and thanks everyone for attending today. My job here is I'm going to put some real-life visualization now to everything that Heather so greatly walked through here about how she's using the product, talking about building reports, refreshing data. I'm going to walk through and show you some live action. I'm going to show you how to change parameters. I'm going to show you how to drill down. I'm going to show you how to build reports. And then we'll also talk about the distribution capabilities. Now, this is a brief overview. Certainly, if you have more questions about the product, submit those through the Q&A box, but certainly we can do presentations for any individuals or groups that may want to see further information specifically about a certain area, a certain question, or certain data access that they may need to see. Now, as Heather was describing, Glennon had mentioned, everything that we do here at Global Software is Excel-based reporting. All the templates, all the reports that we'll talk about here in this brief conversation uses mostly Excel functions with live data. Now, our product sits inside of those Excel workbooks and those worksheets, and you may notice at the top of the screen, there is a new ribbon labeled Spreadsheet Server. Now, that ribbon sits right alongside all of the other functions that you know and use today, so it's important to understand that you do not lose one Excel function. Charts and graphs, borders and colors, pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, if it's a formula inside of the Excel function, you can still apply it and use it in combination with our functionality. Now, our functionality is built into the workbook. There are two components that every single spreadsheet will have that relate directly to that ribbon. Everything else you see on the screen is just Excel. Now, to start with the first set of criteria, it will be parameters. Parameters drive the data. You noticed through Heather's discussion in her reports, parameters were located to be able to filter down to exactly what it is that her group was looking for from a data perspective. Now, in my report, I have 3 specific parameters listed across the top: an entity, a year, and a month. These are not the only 3. Keep in mind, once we're connected into your information, ultimately any field of data can be used to filter your information. So if you would like to see other areas of information, absolutely, we'll discuss that a little bit more in detail as we walk through this today. Now, the second component in every spreadsheet will be a formula. If I click on any cell where we are pulling data directly from the system, you will notice there's a formula embedded in the template. Now, in this case, we have no data returning. There is no activity in the disposition fees, but if I click on bad debt expense, it's the exact same formula. So again, keep in mind that formula is required in order to make the live connection. The parameters are required to be able to filter the data. The ribbon will drive all of that. So if you want to be able to have live data in Excel, you will need to have this ribbon installed inside of that user's Excel workbook. Now, that process takes about 90 minutes. A 90-minute install with no server and no data warehouse, no additional hardware at all with our product, will allow you to be able to walk through and use what we'll show you here today. Once these templates are built, they're always built. We'll talk about how we can share them. We can talk about how we can turn them back into just static Excel spreadsheets as if Spreadsheet Server was not even introduced to the end user. That will involve our distribution manager capability, which is also part of the product. This area right here, not an additional fee, just part of the ribbon. Start using it along with the other products and features that we'll talk about. Now, the goal of the end user, just open Excel. If the report's built, it's always built. Simply open it up. It will have the parameters that were selected when you created it. Then you just simply start modifying. As I modify, it will tell the parameters, or the formulas, I should say, in the spreadsheet to recalculate based on the new data. Now, I've got an actual versus budget column on a month-to-date basis. I have an actual versus budget on a year-to-date basis, and then just some normal Excel functions calculating the variance amount and the variance percentage. So again, meant to work together. Now, in the case of working with this spreadsheet, I'm going to start changing some of these parameters, and you will notice these balances will recalculate. Now, you may see for a very short second, the columns will say value or pending. That simply just means it's recalculating and updating. And remember, all the data in my spreadsheets is as up to date as the last journal entry or the last posting of data. So live interaction, instantaneous access to those changes. Now, I have a drop-down list built in. If I want to select a different entity ID or different location, all I have to do is simply select it from the list. You'll notice that value definition appears in the cell, but now I'm looking at a completely different set of data points from the Lynn Marketplace. If you want to change the year, you want to change the month, it works exactly the same way. You select what you want to modify, and then you just continue filtering, even being able to consolidate all of your data by using the wildcard or the asterisk symbol. As a standalone, this will allow you to be able to consolidate all of your information into one report with one simple click. Now, once you have filtered, the user will just take advantage of that formula because built into the ribbon is a drill down capability. If you'd like to dive deeper into this $4.2 million common area maintenance information, the CAM expenses, then all you have to do is simply just click on the cell, click on the magnifying glass. You will notice the drill down panel will appear on your screen, and it will house the data that makes up that specific balance. So if I move over just a little bit, that $4.2 million number is being represented here, along with the entities that make that up. Remember, I wildcarded it, so it's going to pull in all locations that have activity in that area, along with their account numbers and the basis that you used when you built the report, descriptions, and amounts. Now, when you're in this area, you will have the ability to sort on the data. So if you click on the amount, it will sort it by dollar value. Click once or click twice, you will have ascending or descending type filtering. You can do the same thing on each category listed. Maybe you would like to see all the entities that make up this category. Just simply drag them right above where it sits. It will group them together. Maybe you even want to group it by basis. Notice that that information will automatically be grouped, and that lowest level of information is still intact. If you change your mind, simply just regroup the ordering, and the information, again, will just automatically update based on your assumptions. Drag these back into the panel. You want the description on the left-hand side, you just simply drag and drop it there. Now, if you would like to drill further, you can. You're not limited on the data that's being represented here. If you would want to see more about the CAM reimbursement expenses or any category listed, just double-click, and you will see this drill-down option that appears. Now, this speaks to our product. We can connect into more than just MRI data. We can connect to just about any data source that you may have. A lot of our customers today have more than one source of information. Now, this list is just a representation of those other sources, but in alphabetical order, I can go down here. If I want to see my MRI journal information related to that transaction, all I have to do is click on it, and you will see this additional panel up here on the screen. Now, from here, ultimately, we can go anywhere. You want to go into the other modules or other areas of your system, you absolutely can. It's just another drill down that appears in the panel. Out of the box, we provide you with the account balances and the journal options. You will have the ability to create additional drill downs, and to get to those, all you have to do is double click again. You'll notice we use a little bit different term here called a query, but ultimately I can get into some different areas, and here are just a few examples of the other areas of data that would just appear as another drill down in the panel. So remember, once we're connected in, ultimately any information is available to see. It's just a matter of you need it when you're working with your analysis. So this will be the conversation here today. We're going to talk about live data. We're going to talk about, ultimately, your imagination that drives how a report will look. You're using mostly Excel. We just give you the ability to have live data now in Excel, so ultimately any report can be built, created, and or modified, and then sent to any individual who needs to see it. Now, questions, comments, thoughts, and concerns, please submit those to the Q&A box. We will, at the end of the presentation today, which in about maybe 10 more minutes, we'll wrap this up. We'll start answering and addressing those questions, and certainly would love to hear your feedback. Now, the next step in this process is the ability to be able to build reports. That formula that's in the Excel spreadsheet may look complicated, it may look complex. Remember, we don't ask you to memorize or understand it, we just ask you to use it. So the build a template interface that we provide to you will allow the creation of the formula and ultimately inserting it into your workbook. Now, this is just another tab. This is just an Excel worksheet in my workbook that I'm working with. We're a Microsoft partner, so all the different versions of Excel that are supported today will work even if users internally are on different versions. That's okay. All they have to do is open Excel. Now, the Build a Template is part of that ribbon, sits right in the center. If you click on it, a panel will appear on your screen. I introduce this as the interface. This is the ability now to generate that formula, selecting parameters and inserting it into your template, and then it just becomes a copy and paste exercise. Now, the first formula that we have that we'll speak to is the formula labeled GL value. That will stand for general ledger. You want to pull an account number, an entity ID, a basis, all of those options as they relate today to your general ledger will appear in this panel. You simply use them. You do not have to set up this panel. We create it on your behalf, so by simply installing, opening the Build a Template, you will walk through this exact same process, only it will be using your data, not mine. There are additional formulas that say query. Remember, as I mentioned, we can connect to not only GL data, but any source of information, whether it's in MRI or any other external source that you may have, ultimately through this panel, will interact with that data. So let's walk through this formula. I have a few parameters established here. I'm simply going to modify and change based off the selections that are available. So in this case, what worksheet do I want to insert this on? So the tab that I'm working with, Sheet 1. If you have multiple databases of information, I simply have one, but you can have as many as you want, and they would be listed here. So you could toggle back and forth inside the same spreadsheet. Again, multiple sources, same workbook, same worksheet. One column can represent any data source that you want to pull from. Budget names, if you've got your budget forecasts inside of MRI, we absolutely can grab those. The year, pretty self-explanatory here. That's just the year of data that you would like to see. Formatting, periods, quarters, year-to-date, life-to-date, and ranges. And the period simply represents the month. These are all just simple selections. Remember, I'm selecting them now and defining the formula. Once it's in Excel, I can modify them all. Now, my account segments, the three that I'm working with on my general ledger. Again, yours may be different. Have no fear that they will appear exactly as you have them set up today, using the exact same account numbers and locations and basis or books or whatever you're using. If you add new account numbers or locations, we automatically pick them up. All you have to do is use them. Now, to the right of each segment, there's a button that says Row. When I click on it, it changes it to a column. Will the data go up and down, or will it go left to right? That's simply a formatting option. Once the formula is in Excel, copy and paste will move it around in any template that you can imagine. Value column, there is a wildcard of that asterisk symbol. We mentioned it. If that's inserted into the cell, that will pull, in this case, all locations. I don't want to do that. I want to be specific. I want to start typing in some data here. So you just start typing in what you want to see. Now, if you didn't know what you were looking for, these boxes to the right, if I click on them, will create a list of values related to that segment. So in this case, all of my different locations, I could have done account numbers or basis. Again, it's simply up to the user what you would like to sort on. Filter on description, filter on value, which in this case is entity ID. Same thing with account number and basis. You just select what you need. Now, when I filter, what I'm going to do is use the wildcard as part of that selection. I'm going to pull all account numbers that start with HT51, and the wildcard will fill in the remaining digits for me. There's a line description. What did we create here? You can just type in what you want to see. Generically, I'm going to call this revenue. Now remember, everything in the panel will be in Excel here in just a moment, so that means everything can be modified here in just a moment. So what I'll do is I'm going to hit Insert. Now behind the scenes, there's the formula, all the parameters, and now it's in Excel. So this is a copy and paste exercise. Copy, paste, change more of the parameters or anything that you previously created. So if you'd like to pull in the third quarter and you want to compare that to year to date, and then you want to drop in a variance column in between two cells, you absolutely can. So this would have been the exact process that Heather and her team went through when they were building reports. You just start moving that formula and changing the parameters that are driving your data to ultimately be able to generate whatever information that you want to see. You want a different location inside of your spreadsheet? All you have to do is type it in there, and you can pull data that fast into your template. So you could have consolidations. You can pull certain entities into one cell, single entities. You can do ranges, all different types of options. Where it says revenue, you just start typing in whatever it is that it needs to be. Whatever categories you created, you're in control of those. Now the formula is here, so the drill down is here. It's automatic. But there's also a feature called Expand and Collapse. Heather showed a report of her trial balance. This is exactly how you could create that. This Expand and Collapse feature, watch what it'll do to my spreadsheet. It will pull in all of my account numbers. Remember, I wildcarded it, but all the remaining digits are now or have been populated. Their associated descriptions are now inside of my spreadsheet. Even the values still have a formula intact, so now my variance column is a little more relevant. If I want to see what happened to repair and maintenance in the general exterior category, all I have to do is select that cell and drill down into the information. You want to leave the report in this format? You absolutely can, but the reverse is just to collapse it back. So one report can have different functions or purposes depending on what the user needs to see. Summarize data to being able to see the account level information with still drill down capability? Absolutely can. The difference between this report and any other report that we'll talk about today is really just the user's imagination. The charts, the graphs, the borders and colors, and all the other features and functions of Excel are just applied on top of our functionality in order to create reports that are more visually appealing, or ultimately you can keep them in the black and white phase. Questions, comments, and concerns through the chat box. Again, we will get those toward the end of the call today. But I want to show a couple of additional reports, and then we'll go into distribution and wrap up our part of the presentation. Now, I've got a rent roll summary and a contract detailed report that we'll talk about. Now, the rent roll summary, the idea of this report is that it's very summarized on the surface on purpose as far as the way we've created this and by design is that we've got all of our different properties set up driven by, in this case it's called a business unit on this specific report, but the business unit drives the data. If you would like to see a different location in your spreadsheet, all you have to do is type it and notice that the name will automatically update, all of the other related data will automatically refresh and update, but more importantly, I now have a formula in my spreadsheet that I can drill down into. So not only am I looking at the Winter Place Office Park, I now can see all of the tenants. I can see when the lease was effective, when did they move in, when did they plan on moving out, rent increases over the coming years. So I don't have to worry about if I have additional questions, it's always available for me to see or analyze by simply just taking advantage of that drill down. And notice, this is not GL data now. We're talking about information that may sit on any module inside of your MRI system or any other database that you may want to connect to. So from summarized reports that involve drill downs to being able to start at a detailed level. What if you went on the detail first, eliminating the drill down altogether? Well, in this report, we're doing just that. We're driving it by property ID, but I have all the details, all the tenant information listed. Notice I've got a different set of criteria here than I had in the previous reports because I'm pulling and I need different information. But as far as concept, you change the parameters and then you ask the system to give you the details. So in this case, I'm generating the detail. You will notice my report will automatically update, and I can toggle back and forth as much as I need to in order to make sure that I'm seeing the right information for the right recipient. Because this is Excel, it is very user-friendly. The adoption rate is very high. The ability to now be connected into all of your information allows you to be able to create any type of report in any layout. Now, we have been very specific here in talking about that ribbon, live data, and having access to the information. Well, that's going to lead me into the final conversation today, which is the distribution manager. So we've shown you how to build reports. We've shown you how to interact and modify and change parameters inside of reports. Now let's talk about how you distribute them. As I mentioned, as part of the spreadsheet server ribbon, the distribution manager capability will allow you now to take this detailed spreadsheet or any other report in your workbook and now send it to any individual. Internal, external, static, live, PDF, Excel documents, you will make those selections when you distribute. I have a tab in my workbook, Distribution Control. This tab is going to house how you send the reports. Just like a build a template on the financial side or the non-financial or GL side, we have a build a template, if you will, for the distribution side. Once it's built, it's always built. Now, how did we create this tab? There's a button on the distribution that says New Control Sheet. You will see just that name. If I hit Create, it inserts the tab, inserts the headers. I have 2 additional distribution types already created. I'm going to walk you through how we did that. Now, if I go back to the distribution and hit the Maintain Specs button, you will see this panel that appears on the screen. This panel will walk you through that process. From being able to file save your data, which means I can go over here to the right-hand side of this panel, select where I'd like to send it, and I can send that information directly to that location. If you would like to email it, we connect into your existing email application, which means when I create an email, it will send it using your email address. It's not going to say from Spreadsheet Server or Global Software. It will be your exact email address you have today. It will go through your sent items, and if someone responds, it will go into your inbox. File types, just the different versions that you would like to store the files in. All the different versions of Excel, CSV, HTML, PDF, even Word documents. Modification of cells. Now, a very unique feature here. This will allow you to be able to take one template, such as the operating statement. Remember, they're all driven by parameters and formulas. If you change the formulas, what happens to the data? It automatically refreshes. So we will change the parameters when we distribute. So therefore, I can take one operating statement and be able to make a cell reference, in this case, into the entity ID. And if I want this to be a specific location, all I have to do is type it in. Therefore, when I distribute, those updates will automatically occur. If you want to have multiple changes, you absolutely can. So now, standardized reporting, one template, automatic distribution. All of your reports can easily be distributed in the matter of one click of a button, and I'll show you where that button is located. Specifying worksheets. All the different reports listed, you simply just select the ones that you need. So you'd like to send the operating statement, and I want to send all the tenant information as well. Now you'll notice there's some new areas that appear. The one I want to point out is the protect area. This could be sensitive data. You don't want anyone else to be able to access it without a password. So by checking the boxes here, on the miscellaneous tab is the ability to have passwords to open the workbook, modify it, or protect a specific sheet. The most important decision you'll make related to distribution. Remember, everything I've shown you here is with the ribbon and with the formula. Well, not everyone will have that functionality, nor do you want them to. So we have the ability to convert formulas to values. Global-only selection means it will remove the formula that we created via the build-it template. It will turn it back into just Excel. All the Excel formulas will still work. They will still be applied and still update as you make changes manually. If you would like to even remove the Excel formulas, we have that option. There's also an option to leave every formula in the workbook, and they all will continue to work. But that means the individual who opens it up has to have the spreadsheet server ribbon. Recalculation options, you certainly want that to happen before you send it, so make sure all the recent postings and adjustments will go through in that report when the end user opens it up. To then being able to create an email. This next tab, as I mentioned, connects into your existing email application. Walk through the process just like you do today. You'll notice a panel that appears. Type in the subject line. Type down in the panel itself. Again, this is just the interface to your existing email application. The last part, after the passwords, if you have macros in your workbooks, we can still take advantage. You can even add additional files. By scrolling out, wherever you have information stored, you can grab that additional document, and that will also go along with that email attachment. Now, the push button will not distribute. All it will do is add a new distribution line. You can modify it here in the panel, or you can modify it here in Excel. So if you would like to send out additional reports, maybe you need to send information over to Glennon, maybe Tim needs a report, and I'm going to send a report over to Sue. Because it's reading my email addresses, it will automatically populate and create, and then you start making the modifications. Tim is a PDF guy, Sue needs a static spreadsheet, and we're all in charge of different locations within inside of our organization. So all you have to do is make those modifications, even being able to remove reports that do not need to be sent. Each individual can receive different types of data in different ways. All you have to do is set it up. Once it's built, it's always built. Now, to distribute, you have two options. You have a distribute button that allows you to distribute all, so all 5 lines in this template will certainly go, all the conversions and updates and recalculations. You can highlight or select a line or lines to send. We also have a scheduling capability. Therefore, the data can automatically be sent on any time constraint, minutes, days, weeks, months, or years, internal, external. It now becomes fully automated. So from start to finish, creation, modification, to now distribution, spreadsheet server, start in Excel, stay in Excel. So that's the presentation and conversation that we had planned for today. Certainly we're going to go through some questions that we've received now at this point in the presentation. So we'll pause to answer those, and I'm going to reach out to Glennon to let him go ahead and be the moderator for that, and we'll certainly address those now.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. So we did have a couple of questions come in. One that came in was asking about a data warehouse or a cube to see if any of that was necessary with Spreadsheet Server.
Good question. Now, from the term spreadsheet server, most of you may think that a server component is required, even a data warehouse or a cube environment. But that's absolutely not the case here. The term spreadsheet server simply means we're serving data to a spreadsheet. So there is no additional hardware component at all. This is a direct connection into your data. Hosted or local, it does not matter. We will connect into those different options for you. You will be able to use Excel as the interface and derive reports and build and analyze your data, as I've just shown you here today, with a simple 90-minute installation.
Perfect. And I did have a question on the rent role as well, Kevin, when you were sharing that screen. So I apologize that it's taken a second to get back to you. But we were asked, can this handle any custom fields that we have set up in MRI?
Absolutely. Another good question. So our product, not only can it report just on the standard information that MRI provides today, but if you have custom fields, custom tables, custom data, we will give you access to all of it. If a year from now you add more custom data, you don't have to call us back. We automatically read it. All you have to do is use it when you're creating that report. But absolutely, there's no data that's off limits to us or off limits to you when you're analyzing your information in Excel.
Perfect. And we also had another question about how long it takes to install and about training.
So I touched on that briefly. Again, the installation is about 90 minutes. It's a two-step process. So there is a connection, obviously, that needs to be made. That's the first part. So in that software is the connection criteria that we will need, that we will help you establish. We set that up via WebEx. So after that install, we'll set up an installation call with you all, get you connected in. Once the connection's established, the only other step, which is the second phase, is to now get this ribbon installed in all the users' workbooks. Now, that ribbon, again, takes about 5 minutes per user. There's options to do silent installs, which means we don't have to schedule an appointment with every single user to do that. But ultimately, it's a two-step approach, and again, that's done via WebEx.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin.
You want to speak to the training, Glennon, or would you like me to do that?
If you'd like to, that's fine.
Sure. So after the installation, we get you all up and running. Certainly, we don't just turn the keys over and hope you find what you need. There are training aspects to this that range from anywhere from 2 to 5 days. Within those 2 to 5 days of training, not only will we show you what all the buttons do, which is a very small part of that process, but we would actually like to sit down with you and your team who are actually going to be users and start building reports. They will actually drive the report building process. The trainer who actually comes on site to work with you will allow users now to start working with your data at your location, and when the training is done, you will have actual takeaways. Again, 2 to 5 days at your location, providing you with a trainer to be able to do it. And probably to expand on that one more component is because we're an MRI partner, we have a lot of pre-built MRI information already available. So in most cases, we probably already have rent rolls, contract rent by details. We didn't get to every example today, but we have a lot of pre-built information that will be available for you to use as part of that partnership with us.
Excellent. All right, that's actually all the questions that I had today, Kevin. So I think if there are additional questions, I'll share my email address in a few minutes, so feel free to reach out to us that way or via our website. Yeah, my email address is glennon.andrews@globalsoftwareinc.com, so feel free to reach out to me directly or through the website with any questions. If you would like, as Kevin had mentioned earlier, a more customized presentation, we're happy to walk through that with you as well. Yep, so if you want to do that, we'll be happy to go through and take a deeper dive into the tool. I did get a message, hold on one second, I think one more question came in. It was, can you be on the Windows version of MRI, and when and if there is a migration to web version of MRI, do we have to go through another install?
No, you do not. We simply just make another connection, and you will not lose the reports that you have. All the reports will still continue to work. We'll simply just make it, and you can have connections to both. If you have old data on your local version and you go to the Windows version, the hosted version, you can have connections to both at the exact same time. Great question.
Yeah, and really outside of even just MRI, if you need to connect to other databases in general, SQL databases, another system, legacy data, if you've gone through an acquisition or something, we can reach that as well. So yeah, that is a great question. So that is really what we had today. So just wanted to thank Heather and WS Development for their time on the call and for their part of the presentation. And please reach out to us for additional information and to learn more. We'd love to continue the conversation. Thank you all.